Hey guys, it's Shaylin and I'm here today with another writing video. So today I'm just doing like a more chatty video. I feel like recently it's been a lot of more scripted stuff on craft or writing advice. This is not really an advice video. I wanted to talk about my journey with confidence in my writing. I realized recently that in the past year and a half, I feel like my confidence has reached a very stable point. And I was kind of reflecting on how I got there, because it's something that I have struggled with a lot, and I wasn't always a confident writer, and sometimes that insecurity was really a lot, and I think it's something that most writers do deal with. I made a video in the fall of 2019 on my experience with imposter syndrome as a writer, and in it, oh my god, I was a mess. That wasn't even a point in my life where I was really not confident. I was actually even getting to a pretty secure place, and even then in that video, I'm kind of a mess, but I feel like I really reached a really stable point with my confidence. It wasn't necessarily an easy road. I started writing when I was around 8, and I was really confident in my writing, and I think it's because I was young enough that I didn't really have any ability to perceive quality, right? I liked writing, and that was good enough for me. I think the doubts started to creep in when I was around 13. I don't know, I think I just was a bit older and was able to perceive the errors in my work a lot easier, and it became a lot harder to feel this just kind of pure confidence that I felt as a young kid. And I was not a very confident child or human at all. Never really have been. And so naturally this started to extend to my writing. I remember in my early teens when adults would believe in me and be like, oh, and you're gonna be a famous writer one day, or say stuff like that. This sounds really bad. This makes me sound like a really terrible, ungrateful child. I think it was just teen angst. It would actually bother me because I would think why you don't know that. Adults would always say you're gonna be so successful, and I always was but what if I'm not? In my head I would always think, but what if I'm not? Other people seem to think that it's gonna be a given, but I perceive a career as a writer as a dream job that is extremely unlikely to happen. I didn't think with any certainty that I would ever publish a book. It was maybe someday, I hope maybe I will publish a book if I'm super lucky and I work super hard. So as you guys know, I studied writing in university. There was actually a period of time where I wasn't going to do that. Eventually got to a point when I was around 15 where I was I'm not going to school for writing, even though it's what I wanted to do. I loved writing so much, and I have since I was a child. It was never just a little side hobby. It was always something I took really seriously. Despite that, there was a point where I talked myself out of it, and it's because I was constantly told that going into the arts was risky, impractical. That was just the general, not from my parents, but just the word around town, you know? That's what they say to kids who want to go into the arts, right? For me, I was a very nervous child. Everything on this earth made me anxious. Every social interaction that I had, every thought about the future, everything I knew and learned about the world made me anxious. And so being told that this was a risky thing to do really got to me. It was okay, so here's a risky thing that you want to do, paired with the fact that I don't really believe in myself that I can do it. For several years when I was a teenager, I was planning on going into sciences, and the whole time that I was planning to go into sciences and I was taking all of the science courses that I needed in high school to apply to sciences, the whole time I still saw writing as my dream job. It's still what I wanted to do with my life. I thought it was an impractical and impossible dream, and so I didn't want to pursue it. And this is gonna sound bad, and I just want to say again, I'm talking about my own insecurities, and I'm not saying that anyone should feel this way, but I felt like it would be embarrassing for me to believe in my writing, because I didn't want to be one of those people who thinks they're good at something but is actually terrible at it. Big worry of mine was that I was actually terrible at writing, but I just couldn't see it. I think that kind of thought process made it really hard to have any kind of lasting confidence in my work, because anytime I wrote something that I did like, this little voice in my brain would go, Okay, but it might just be bad and you can't see it. Like, your assessment of it means nothing. And I really put no value on my own assessment of my work. I was under the impression, and this was reinforced through what I later would hear said online, that as the writer, I have no ability to judge the quality of my work. So that made it really hard because anytime I liked something that I wrote, I couldn't trust it. Eventually, I did decide to study writing in university, which is a story in and of itself. Let's say I did cry in the career counselor's office. It's fine. Like I said, I was putting in all the work to go into sciences. My mom is a very perceptive and intelligent woman. My mom knew that it was like the wrong decision for me to go into sciences, but she also, I think, knew that I was set on this because it's what I wanted security, and I wanted to do something practical and employable, and I was good at science, right? Like, it was something that I did excel at in high school, but was it my lifelong passion and dream? No. And now obviously there's a lot of privilege in being able to like say, well, and then I was able to follow my dream. Obviously there's a lot of financial privilege in being able to get a degree in the arts. If you want to hear me talk about how I funded my arts degree and the costs involved with that, I talk about it in my video on writing degrees. I talk about like what my tuition was and how it was paid for. There's like a career counselor person that a lot of people in my like area would go to. A lot of people, you know, who don't really know like what they want to do or what path they want to take would go see this guy. I don't know. I don't remember his name. Very nice man though. I never had any interest in going to see him, right? Because I was like, I know what I'm doing. When we got there and we started having a conversation, he said in the nicest way, you're making the wrong decision. He was like, look, when you talk about writing, like your face actually lights up. When you talk about going into sciences, you just don't have that same passion for it. Like, I can just see, like, it might be something you like, it might be an interest of yours, you are good at it, like you have the grades for it, but there's a difference. I then cried because this was something that I'd been pursuing for several years and it just got kind of upended. I was also crying from like relief because there were two adults in the room saying, you're not an idiot if you want to study writing, like that's okay. I'm not gonna mock you for being impractical. I'm not gonna think you're a fool for thinking you're good enough to do it. Like honestly, I was the fool for thinking I was good enough at math to go into sciences, okay? I was not the fool for thinking I was good enough at writing to get a degree in writing. Like, my God, like I graduated my degree in writing with distinction. I don't think I would have lasted a year in a science degree. That was like at the beginning of my last year of high school. I dropped out of physics 12. My high school physics teacher, literally, it's like everyone, and it's so funny because looking back, like I said, I would get annoyed when people believed in me, and I think it's like, it annoyed me because I didn't believe in myself, and so when they believed in me, it felt like they were just giving me a little pat on the back and being like, oh yeah, good for you, like I believe in you. But no, I can't believe that I felt that way because these people genuinely did believe in me and they genuinely did think I was talented. They weren't just telling me that to like appease my little foolish dreams like I thought. But I remember I went to the first day of physics 12 and the teacher was like, hey everyone, only take this class if you're going to become an engineer. Otherwise, get out of here. It's gonna be the worst class you ever take. And he came up to me and he was like, why are you here? Are you supposed to be like a really good writer? Like, why don't you go get a degree in English? And I was like, you know, points are being made. The most difficult time for my confidence as a writer was my first year of university. There were a few things that contributed to this. The first thing was I was struggling in my university program. I don't know what it was. I had some kind of mental block. I've talked about this before. I struggled with every assignment in my intro to writing class because I couldn't get ideas. It was like there was a mental block all of a sudden that there were just no ideas, and I'd never dealt with this before and I didn't know what was causing it. And so as a result, everything I wrote in that class was really forced. It wasn't something I cared about, and so it turned out badly. And so everything I wrote in that class, my intro to writing class, was really, really weak. I also did the first round of beta reading that I ever did in my life. Now, if I have one regret It's doing these 2 beta reading rounds that I did. I regret it so much. Now, the reason I did it is because I felt like that was the thing that I was supposed to do. At the time, I feel like beta reading was like at its height of popularity. Everyone was beta reading. I feel like it's kind of died down now, but it was really the thing at the time. I think I didn't put enough thought into this first beta reading process. I just felt like you wrote a book, this is the next step that everyone does, right? That was really tough because it was the first time that I was getting critique on my work from strangers. And I'm gonna be honest, beta readers, some of them will be lovely, of course, but you will get really mean people when you do beta reading because they're strangers. They don't know you. When I did that first round of beta reading, one of the reviews that I got is still to this day probably the meanest thing I've ever gotten on my writing. Like, I shouldn't have done it, but this is where we get to the next interesting bit of the story. I will be real. The thing that has impacted my confidence the most in a negative way is having this AuthorTube channel. People think that having a platform will like inflate your ego. It did the opposite to me. One thing that I would get comments on a lot, all the time, were people telling me that I was really arrogant and that I must be a bad writer, right? I would get a lot of comments basically saying like, you're not as good as you think you are. A lot of people would be able to just brush this off. But I'm not one of those people. I'm very sensitive to this kind of thing. And in general, when I would get these comments over and over, really exacerbated the problem I'd had since as a kid, which was that inability to trust myself, right? You know how I talked earlier about how anytime I started to like my writing, this little voice in me would go, but what if it's bad? It got even worse because anytime I liked what I wrote, this little piece of me would go, well, maybe all those people are right. Maybe you're actually just super arrogant and your writing is terrible and you can't see it. It really impacted me because it messed with my perception of myself. Anytime I would display any tiny bit of confidence or pride in my work, it immediately gets shut down by someone being like, well, no, you're actually a bad writer. And what I basically was getting told and internalized was, if you think your writing is good, that makes you a bad person. That means that you're arrogant, it means you're not self-aware. I basically didn't allow myself to like anything that I wrote. Anytime I liked anything that I wrote, it just reinforced these fears that had been instilled in me from all these comments from people. Anytime I wrote something that I liked, either it would get shut down as soon as I expressed confidence in it, or I would just do that on my own. Anytime that I felt confident in my work, I perceived it as arrogance, other people perceived it as arrogance, and I didn't allow myself to go there. This would have been 2015 to 2016. This was the roughest time for my confidence because my platform was starting to grow and so I was getting more of these comments. I did another round of beta reading, which I regret so deeply, late in 2016, and I wasn't in a good place to do it because my confidence was already kind of messed up from all these other things. For a lot of reasons that was a bad idea, and again, I just felt pressured to. But I think I was also craving something to, like, some kind of objective proof that I wasn't a terrible writer. I wasn't getting it from my grades because I was doing badly in my writing degree, which that messed with me so much. You know, it's like the one thing that you hope you're good at. I'm not a multi-talented individual. Like, there aren't a ton of things I'm really good at. My self-worth was entirely built around my capabilities as a writer, and yet I didn't allow myself to feel any kind of confidence. Any hit to my competence as a writer hit so profoundly to my self-worth because it's what my entire self-worth was based around. When I started my second year of university, I was in such a stressed out place because I'd struggled in first year. I had no confidence in myself. One thing that was really hard is I really put all the weight on my confidence in other people because I felt like I had no capabilities to perceive the quality of my work. And here's the thing, the quality of your work isn't a caveat for being able to love it. You can love your work no matter how good or bad, and those things can be subjective. It is. Like, you don't have to earn the ability to like what you write, but I thought that I had to, and so I didn't allow myself to even like the things I wrote. I would like them while I was writing them, and then as soon as I was done, I'd hate it. That's why I abandoned so many books. I mean, there are other reasons why I abandoned those books. Like I just kind of outgrew them, the concepts. A big part of why I struggled writing book after book after book after book is because as soon as I would write it, I wouldn't allow myself to think it was good. And because I didn't think it was good, I didn't think I was allowed to care about it. I thought it would be like embarrassing if I liked it when it was bad. When you don't have to earn the ability to like what you write. Like you can just like what you write because it makes you happy. I was at this very low point where because I didn't think I had any ability to perceive how good or bad my writing was, right? Like in my mind, if I think it's good, that means nothing. And so I put the weight of how good my writing was entirely on other people. If someone else was like, hey, this is really good, then I would feel like, okay, maybe I am a good writer. But as soon as someone else came in and said, actually, this is shit, it all fell apart. And so that was a really rough place to be because there's no stability in that. Like you're never gonna be told consistently your writing's really good. And so I was in this terrible ping pong effect, and I was also getting feedback in ways that were really unhealthy for me, like from beta readers. Beta reading was so unhealthy for me, especially at that stage in my life, because beta readers, they're strangers. They will say things like, this is bad and I hate it, like in those words, you know, or worse. Not really the tone that you should be critiquing work, but for someone who was viewing things in such a black and white way, that really messed with me. Then we get to January of 2017. This is where things start to change. And now this is the thing that is kind of sad about this whole story about me reaching a point of confidence with my work. I wish I could say I found confidence from within, but I didn't. Like I said, I'd put my worth as a writer and kind of as a person so much in the hands of other people. I'm gonna be completely honest. When I started to feel more confident, it was because I was being given that confidence by other people. It didn't come from internally. It does now, but not initially. That's the point where I started to actually start excelling in university. I don't know what happened, but that whatever mental block I'd had in first year kind of dissolved, and suddenly I was producing good work, and I was producing work that I liked, I was passionate about, and therefore it was actually turning out well. I was getting good feedback from classmates. I was getting good feedback from professors. I had this one fiction professor who's known for being like a hard ass. This prof does not give out A's unearned, like you work for it. And I'd gotten some pretty bad grades from this prof, and so when I started getting good grades from this professor, I knew it was earned. And I know this sounds so bad, but it's like because of objective things, you know, getting good grades now, getting good feedback from people who I really respected. I had my first story published. It's like I was building up a bit of a shield against the internet comments of people telling me that I sucked at writing. Then when people were like, you suck at writing, a little thing in my brain would go, okay, but these people who I actually respect don't think I suck at writing. And I've had a story published. And it's bad. I wish I could say that I found that within myself, but to be honest, I didn't. To be honest, it was because I started having external success. That's when I started, from then on for the next couple of years, really excelling in university. I was getting good grades, I was writing good work, I started getting more pieces published. And so then when random strangers on the internet would be like, actually I think you are terrible at writing, it wasn't so fluid and emotional. Like part of me could just go, you know what, this person doesn't know me. And I've done these things. It's unfortunate that that confidence really did come from external factors, but it's like I needed that to ground myself and just be like, you do know what you're doing. Like you're good at writing. Around 2 years ago, I feel like my confidence reached a very stable point. I haven't had a low period of confidence at all, or even really a high. It's just been consistent. I feel like my confidence is not a factor anymore. I like the work that I produce. If I don't like it, it's not because I think I'm terrible at writing. It's just because the piece is not turning out how I want it to. And I feel like my confidence is no longer really a factor. Like it's not a question like, am I a good writer? Am I allowed to like what I write? Yes, I'm allowed to like what I write. Whether it's good or bad, I'm allowed to like it. And I don't feel like I have to earn the ability to like what I write. Like I think that was the hardest part about it, was that for so long I felt like my writing had to be good before I could like it. That's not true. You can just like what you write. If it's the first thing you've ever written, even if it's not very good, it doesn't matter. All that said, my whole story with confidence, because now I feel like I'm in such a stable place. Like it doesn't really affect me as much. I don't have ups or downs in confidence that really affect me at all. I'm just here writing work that I like, and I want to make it better, and I get feedback on it, and the feedback doesn't impact me negatively, it just impacts me positively. What do I wish I had known from the very beginning to have gotten to this place a little sooner? The first thing I wish is that I had stopped valuing one piece of hate over many people's praise. Like, I wish that I had stopped viewing hate as more valid than praise. I think this is a natural thing that a lot of us do. We view criticism on work as more intelligent and therefore more valid than praise. That is not true. Like, I think hating things is seen as like the more intellectual thing, and so if 10 people love what you write but one person hates it, we tend to perceive the one person who hates it as being right. No, I'm not saying the person who hates it is wrong, but those two opinions are not inherently, like, one is not more valid than the other. The second thing I wish I had known early on, honestly, if someone had told me this, I don't know if I would have even taken it to heart, but I wish someone had said to me, look, if you love what you write, that is not a bad thing. It's not embarrassing. It doesn't make you arrogant. The work doesn't have to be at a certain echelon of quality for you to like it. You can just like it because it's your writing and you wrote it. I really wish I had just learned that earlier, that if I like it, that's the most important thing. I wish I had written on my own terms rather than other people's, rather than trying to write the way that I thought a good writer would write, writing work that I thought a good writer would write, writing to appease other people and for other people in ways that were for other people. I wish I had stopped doing that and I had just written on my own terms what I wanted to write in the way that I wanted to write. I think I talked about this in my video on writing selfishly, how for a long time I think my writing was so for other people, and it was for other people because I needed other people to like it to feel good about it. When people would then not like it, it was devastating because it's like I put everything into making this as palatable for everyone as possible, and then you didn't like it. What do I even have? So it was very shaky. I don't know. I talk about it in my video on writing selfishly if you want to check that out. Once I started just writing on my own terms, writing the work that I really loved, and I didn't think about what other people would think about it, that changed everything for me. What was important now was, do I like it? As long as I like it, I really didn't care what other people thought. And you know what? That's what made my writing better. My writing wasn't good when I was trying to write it for other people. The other thing that I wish I had learned earlier was to separate respect for myself as a person from the respect I get on my work, and learn that the quality of work I produce says nothing about me as a person. I don't know how I got here, but I almost put moral judgment on myself for the work that I produce. Like, it's almost like if I produce bad work, I almost interpret it as being like a bad person. I wish that I had just separated those things, because for a long time my self-worth was really tied to my writing, and because my confidence in my writing was really shaky, that was hard for me. I think that understanding all those things would have helped me, and to be honest, I think the thing that would have helped me the most would be staying off the internet. Having a platform was not the right thing for someone as sensitive as me, and it for a long time held me back from feeling confident in my writing. I still get comments about how I'm like self-absorbed or whatnot. I still get comments from people saying, like, people trying to like invalidate any possible praise that I could get. Like, I've had comments from people saying like, oh, well, if people like your writing, like, it's only because you have a following. I don't know, just don't leave comments like that. There's no reason to tear down how other people feel about themselves, but luckily it doesn't really bother me anymore, like it really used to. I'm in a good place, and it was hard to get there, and it wasn't the most ideal route to get there, because it really did come from external things and not from internal things, but now I think it's internal. Now I have that confidence. I just like what I write because it makes me happy. I think I'm gonna end off this video here because it was pretty long. That's all. I don't really know how to close this off in a meaningful way after such a like vulnerable video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can always send me an ask on Tumblr, and I'll see you in another video.